What's up, everybody? Welcome back. This is the Deep Corner episode 10. I'm your host, Rob St. Clair, and I'm pleased to be joined today from the Phoenix Ascension, Mr. Brian Lewis. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Rob, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here.
So, what are you doing to stay busy these days? Quarantine's kept us a little bit away from the game of volleyball. You going crazy yet, like me, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? We were getting into a really good routine of getting our training sessions in and just kind of prepping for that April season opener. And now everything's kind of been put on the back burner. No touches with teammates, which is kind of tough, but I think as athletes, we all find ways to kind of keep going. So it's been a lot of at-home training, or with gyms closed, it makes it difficult as well, but utilizing whatever resources we have, getting touches in wherever we can, and just hoping that call comes in sooner rather than later to jump on that court and get ready to put a show on for the people.
That's what we're hoping too, man. So let's just kind of talk through your volleyball life. When did you first touch a volleyball? What was your first exposure to the game?
Man, it's been a while. So I mean, I wouldn't call it my first serious touches, but I started playing in middle school, and that was just kind of my first exposure to the game. I saw my older brother playing a year prior to me, and he won a city championship, and it looked so fun. So got into it then. Was still more heavily involved in basketball at the time. I think almost like it seems like all volleyball players.
Yeah, that's pretty standard.
Mm-hmm. And then as I got into high school, I played freshman and JV, and I was still splitting time basketball and volleyball. And then I kind of realized basketball isn't going to be my go-to. I'm not cut out for it. It's just not my style. So I got serious more about volleyball. And it really didn't take off for me until about in between my junior and senior year, when I had a bit of a growth spurt. I worked hard in the gym and gained some athleticism and was able to be kind of a go-to guy on my team my senior year. A couple accolades here and there, but nothing major. Didn't get recruited, didn't put in the work to get recruited either, because I knew that my hometown school, the University of Arizona, had just a elite club program.
Yeah.
And I was more than fine with just staying at home and competing for a spot out there. So that's what I did. Went to the U of A, played my 4 years there. And through that, I mean, I had good coaches. The quality of competition on the club level, I think, is overlooked a lot.
I want to talk about that a lot.
Yeah, people are aware of it, but I think people aren't so sure of the quality of play that comes out of it. And I mean, I can name multiple people that were teammates of mine that went on from club to D1. One of them in particular now, who's a member of the men's national team.
Mr. Dan McDonald, I believe.
Dan McDonald, absolutely. So I did that, and I had just a great time with it. I loved it because it was just uber competitive, but it was also really a brotherhood between the guys. So it was almost like being in a fraternity without that actual fraternity lifestyle, which is great. But the level of play was amazing. I got a lot of good reps out of it. And then from there, it's just been adult region stuff in Arizona. I was lucky to befriend Vince Zanzuki, who's just kind of kept me under his wing for a long time, and brought me into when the PVL was going around. He introduced me to that, tried out for the Arizona team, made that, and then even all the way through last season. And now, just looking forward to this next VLA season whenever it kicks off. But, it's not the traditional route of being recruited and playing NCAA ball or NAIA, but I think the big thing that came out of it for me was that, and I try to tell this to the younger kids that I coach, it doesn't have to be D1. Any opportunity that comes up your way, you can progress and make a name for yourself through any level of the game. So a lot of kids nowadays shoot for just D1 or nothing at all, and there's so many other options out there, especially with the men's game growing as it is.
It's a great point. And so I'm having almost exactly the same background as you. I played college club as well and had a very similar experience. And I want to talk about that a lot because you're the first guy I've had on the show that played that at that level in college. There will be several more that I want to have on to talk about that. But like you said, it's overlooked how good that level is. So like a lot of people know, the D1 level for men's is so small that you can't even have a top 25 nationally. It was just a top 15. And D2 is lumped in with D1 at the championship level anyway. They compete for the same NCAA title. D3 has grown a lot the past several years. NAIA has grown a lot in the past even 2 or 3 years. But just the number of teams just isn't nearly as high as, say, is on the women's side. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of teams above where the women's college club level is. And the men's college club level, a lot of the time, guys will go like you did, that route, or like I definitely did to Purdue. because the school was the right fit for them, or like they wanted the big school thing, or maybe they bloomed late in the game of volleyball, or they weren't willing to put in the work to go D1, or whatever the reasons are. People don't understand how good the college club level is. And your team got a little bit of a taste of that in the preseason, because you got to scrimmage against ASU once and U of A twice, right? So first of all, what's it like playing against your old club all these years later? That must be cool.
It is fun. It's in the fact that, at one point I was playing against kids that I still knew, and now it's obviously a younger generation of kids that I'm not familiar with. But it's fun because once we can interact with them and they ask, oh, where'd you guys go to school? I'm able to say, oh, I'm right where you guys were. I was at the U of A. Same with a lot of the ASU kids. I think they know what the club system is all about, and just it's not about where you're at, but the quality of reps that you're getting and the work that you're putting in. But even being able to scrimmage, those are two good programs that are going to unfortunately this season they won't compete for a national championship as it's been cut short. But those are two teams that would have competed easily, top 10 programs in the country on the club level. So
definitely
getting reps against them early on for us is good, because it helped us get against legit competition, build a little bit of team chemistry in the preseason, just kind of get our feet wet on to get the ball rolling for what we were trying to do and what we are going to do once the season progresses.
Yeah, and Vince talked about too how putting that in front of the people in the state of Arizona is a cool thing, because guys like that are playing at U of A and ASU now know that your team exists and is an option after they're done playing college club. I think that's a cool thing to be able to play them and put that product in front of the viewers that you got to play in front of when you guys did those scrimmage and all. But like those guys playing club, they're like, oh yeah, if I stick around in Arizona, like I can come play for these guys.
Sure.
And I'm still very involved and familiar with the college club level. Those two teams are good. They would have definitely been championship contenders this year. ASU made it all the way to the finals in 2015, 16.
I believe so. It was something around that time.
Yeah, it was when I was playing. I just can't remember which of my years it was. I think it was 15. Got second in the country that year. And there are D1 caliber players on those teams. There are ex-D1 players on those teams. There are professional caliber players on those teams. There are guys that go overseas after playing club volleyball to pursue it for real. So yeah, the level is no joke. So when you were playing, it was NERSA, right? Before it transitioned to what's now NCVF?
Yeah, for my first 2 years, it was NERSA, and then my senior year. My junior year was the first year that it changed to NCVF.
Got it.
And then from there on forward, that was the governing body that was running it.
Yep. So where were your nationals tournaments at for club, and what were those experiences like? Like, talk about college club nationals, because I think it's one of the best things of the year.
Yeah, it's my freshman year we were in Dallas. Sophomore year was Kansas City, which I think is just a great city, a lot of fun to be in. We did Louisville my junior year, and then Houston my senior year. So I think for us, it's fun because it gives the college student just an opportunity to go and travel somewhere and play, regardless if it's a big city, small city. You're getting out of just your locale and going to play somewhere else.
Yeah.
The environment was something like I'd never experienced before. When I stepped into it my freshman year, it was probably the biggest crowds we had played against, because teams and everyone in the gym will flock to the courts where the top competition is.
On the men's side, that's right.
You're getting 6-7 rows deep of just standing space. And, it's just the more people you have, the bigger the intensity, the more adrenaline you get on the court, the more you want to perform. And so by the time it dwells down to the national championship game, you're playing in an arena packed with 10 to 15,000 students, it feels like. And the vibe is just something else. A big part of club does seem to be that it is kind of a party overall, but volleyball takes precedent on that for sure right out the gate. But, you get a bunch of 18 to 21-year-olds, getting them in an arena with the sport they love, it gets pretty wild and raucous, and that was really fun to just be in that environment. I look forward to it every single year.
It's just the best, yeah, and it still is very similar. That event, NCVF Nationals, breaks its own world record for largest collegiate sporting event in the world every year.
Right.
The teams now are over 500, men's and women's side combined. And yeah, by the time it gets to the men's national championship game, which is the last thing on the Saturday of that tournament, it is just electric.
There's just something about just straight chills every time Sweet Caroline plays. At least thinking about it.
Oh yeah, what a great tradition
that's been going on for well before when I started, and will continue on for who knows how long. But
Yeah, between set 1 and
fun,
2 of the men's championship game every year, they play Sweet Caroline, and everybody in the gym is going insane and singing along to it. Yeah, just the best. It's such a shame that all that got canceled this year. It was going to be in Kansas City again this year.
Right.
All the cities, like mine, for example, were Dallas, Reno, KC, Louisville, KC again, and then St. Louis, and then KC again. So they kind of have the same rotation of cities. Yeah, can't say enough about how cool NCAVF Nationals is. And I'll like I was saying, I'll have a bunch of VLA guys that played at the college club level on the show throughout the next couple of months to talk about that. But I think you brought up a good point. It's an overlooked option for kids that are coming out of high school that want to continue playing at some level, but they either aren't getting recruited or they want to pick up their school first. I think club is just a great choice for all those guys.
Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, the opportunity can stem from club as well. So,
that's true.
I mean, because usually at the Vegas Open, there's usually scouts from D1, or not scouts, but assistant coaches from D1 teams. If they're not busy, they'll be there. So that's how Dan got picked up. That's Irvine had someone there. They saw him play, and then next year, he's out on the court for Irvine. So
yeah, if people haven't heard of Dan McDonald, expand on that story just a little bit.
So he's from Phoenix. He played his high school ball, Brophy Prep up here. I was friends with him at the U of A. We were in the same freshman class. So freshman, sophomore year, he was on our A team. We were teammates my sophomore year. I mean, this kid just, I think 6'6", just dominant on the club level, super athletic. I mean, he had all the skills, was still a little bit raw, but he had the athleticism to really compete. So we go to Vegas, and he's just doing his thing, tearing it up.
Oh yeah.
From what I remember, I don't know if it was Niffin that was the assistant coach at the time, but he was out there from Irvine, spoke to Dan, recruited him. He took a visit out there, and then the next year he's at Irvine. Then you flash forward 2 years, he's on the service line for the national championship and gets an ace and wins the NCAA national championship.
That's right.
So he's obviously led himself to have a very good international career as well, multiple stops, different countries, and then playing all the way up to the men's national team, where I think he's still in the gym with them right now, coming off, I believe it was a shoulder surgery. But
that's correct.
Yeah, so he's obviously, you never know who's watching, I guess is the big thing is. And if you're willing to put in the work, the opportunity is always going to be there to promote yourself and grow your career.
Yeah, well said. That's for anybody at any level can take that lesson. But the club is, I think people are starting to get it. The top 10, top 15 men's D1 club teams every year are outputting some seriously legit players. I know a popular spot for them to go these days is to the UK to play in grad school.
Right.
Like when I was at Nationals last year coaching a team, there were 2 coaches from England there trying to look at club guys to come over there and do their masters. And I talked to Dan Starkey a little bit about the fact that he did that. That's becoming common, and that's an avenue to go play professional volleyball. So people are starting to get it about club. So after club, you stuck around in Arizona, and like you said, you kind of got hooked up with Vince and his Arizona Sizzle team. What's the kind of the path a little bit more expanded from college club to what we now are talking about, like professional caliber volleyball? Like talk about the PVL years a little bit.
So I think I made the cut on the PVL team in their second season. So I didn't try out the first year when they had the inaugural season at the Phoenix USAV Open Nationals. But we had an open tryout here in Phoenix since we had a team, and a lot of good competition. A lot of the guys that came from that team were ex-GCU players. Yeah. So solid competition. But I think PVL was a good first step to try to bring and promote professional volleyball in the United States. The teams that were featured when I went, I think we were in Detroit the first year. You're looking at guys that were coming back from being overseas and just all these big names that I'd heard of prior to, and I'm sitting there a little bit starstruck still because I'm looking at myself. I'm like, I'm just this kid from Tucson. Like I don't have a lot going for me in this, but playing against guys that I've heard about, like for example Lloyd Ball. Yep. Which now I've had the opportunity to play against multiple times, but back then it was seeing him being like, oh, this is a gold medalist. Like, look at his hands. Look at the guys he has on his team. I'm looking at guys like at PTAC, and I'm like, how do guys get this big? And 2, how do I compete with that? So it was humbling experience for sure, because I went from a place of in the Arizona region really being able to hold my own and be dominant in my own sense, to now being thrown in with guys who were worlds better than I was. And it was humbling because I thought I was far better than I was until I hit this level. And I realized, oh, I have to work so much harder day in, day out to compete because everyone is above my level. So, but again, I think the PBL was great. And I think that was kind of a stepping stone for what has been basically building up to where we're at now.
Yeah, in a league sense, in a team sense, and sounds like for you in a personal sense as a player. And I think that a good point you made about where I've always thought about this a lot, like a player's self assessment of his own ability in relation to the rest of the gym. And when you go to PVL Nationals for the first time, having played at U of A and having played adult region volleyball in Arizona, like that is insane. Like I could see being starstruck and kind of intimidated. But kind of the nature of your position at the opposite is that of all the positions there are, you kind of just have to try and swing away all the time. You kind of have to have the mindset of being the guy. You have to take a bunch of swings in a match and trying to score a bunch of points. So how does that mindset change happen? Do you just play a bunch of matches and grow confidence? What are you thinking about in the transition to that high of a level?
Yeah, I mean, I do think basically after getting some reps in and just getting even a little bit of court time, I started realizing I have nothing to lose. Like, I know how to play this game. I just have to go out and play my game. And I think you just kind of build off the hype of seeing other people do things and just competing with your team. I mean, I've been fortunate to always be surrounded by a group of guys that were very encouraging to myself and just able to pick me up if I was down or if I was doubting anything. I've always had people in my ear saying, Brian, you can compete with anyone that's out here. Just believe in yourself and you got this. Like, I think there comes a point where your level of experience doesn't matter anymore. It's you can train and get as good as you want. You can compete where you want if you do that. So,
I agree with that.
Like, past just being, it doesn't matter where you played, where you came from. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, volleyball is volleyball. If you know how to play, you're going to find a way to succeed.
That's right. I totally agree with that.
And I mean, like any competitor, I thrive off of playing against better competition. So I'm playing against people that are bigger, faster, stronger. It's just going to make me work that much harder to try to become more efficient at what I'm doing. So if I can't go over someone, I have to work off of them, work around them, just find ways to point score. And like you said, that opposite position, it is about point scoring.
Yep.
So I have to be able to swing for points. I have to be able to be terminal on the block. I have to be able to be terminal at the service line, or at least be aggressive. And I think over the years, I've started to be able to develop that. Obviously, it's always going to be a work in progress. But I think I'm starting to get to a point where I compete well. The good thing is, again, I have teammates around me that are absolutely terminal. Even on our team right now, we've got guys like Joe Kalia-Kamo, we got Surgeon Nadazin, who just, in the last season, two of the best outsides we had in the league.
Oh, yeah.
From any team. That's a dynamic 1-2 punch. We got someone like Mark Olson, who is one of the biggest shutdown blockers that is in this league right now. We've got phenomenal ball control behind our block. So it's just, we have all these good pieces that do their job so well that it's going to allow myself or whoever's in that opposite position to do our job and focus on just doing our job. So it's easy to get the confidence when you have guys behind you that are all about the team and buying into the mentality and doing their job so you can do yours.
Yep. I like that. I think at the highest levels, the opposite position is the guy that the ball will be thrown up too high when you kind of need to score a point. And like I talked about this when I had Griffin Shields on the show, another oppo, like a different kind of style of opposite than you, but he agrees that just the nature of the position is that sometimes you kind of just have to be the guy, and which is great because that is a role that kind of everybody knows. I think volleyball might be the most team sport of any sport there is.
Absolutely.
I think we're all biased, but I think we can we could back that claim up a little bit if we wanted to. So you talked.
Yeah, I mean you can't do anything without your teammates. You can't touch the ball more than once in a row.
That's my argument every time.
Right there. It levels down a little bit. Not levels down, but I mean, when you get into the beach game, it's a little less because you're going to get more touches, I think, overall. But yeah, indoor volleyball sixes, you can't do anything without your teammates. So, definition of a team sport for sure.
That's right. So you mentioned a little bit that at the opposite position, at least at our level, you're a little bit undersized. You're about 6'4".
6'4", yeah.
You've obviously jumped your way up to the levels of where these 6'8", 6'9" guys are. But like you kind of mentioned, you're maybe not able to hit the ball over the block all the time. Break it down a little bit more into what goes into hitting at this high of a level, especially if you're against blockers that are approaching 7 feet tall.
Right, right. Well, I mean, that mentality of trying to put every ball down really goes out the window pretty fast.
Oh yeah,
what you can get away with in, region play, rec play, whatever it is, or just that young man's mentality, that like high school mentality of, oh, I'm just going to bounce this ball 10 foot. A point's a point. That is irrelevant at this point.
Yep. No pictures on the scorecard, to use a golf term.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, now it's more that high swing, deep corners, or especially where all these teams have such solid blocks. More times than not, it's going to be a triple on anything out of system. It's working off hands, knowing where the shots need to go, but making sure that contact is high and I'm swinging deep and really challenging high hands on everything I'm doing, as opposed to trying to go down, because I'm going to point score more in that deep third of the court at this point than I am anywhere else.
Absolutely true.
I respect my opponents enough to know that they are going to be disciplined in what they're doing, and they're really going to be taking away the easy shots. So everyone at this level is going to be a top-notch defender. Defense is going to pick everything up, so I just need to do my best to make my swing as aggressive as possible to force them to be challenged to be able to continue the play.
Yeah, that's well said. Again, I think you're the first lefty I've had on the show so far. I mean, you've been left-handed your whole career. You have an interesting perspective. All the angles are just backwards for you than they are for me. I'm right-handed and I play on the right side a lot. It's just different, and especially when you're defending against a lefty, I think it's completely different. Blockers using their eyes are looking at completely different things. Servers are expecting the balls to spin the opposite way. You've played volleyball for this many years and you've been left-handed the entire time. Try and bring that perspective to the people. Do you think you have advantages or disadvantages? And talk to me about that a little bit.
It's hard because people ask me that, and since this is all I've ever known,
right? That's why it's a weird question.
It's so hard to kind of put into words, because they're like, oh man, it's so much tougher to defend a lefty, and I'm like, well, I guess, but since I don't go up against too many of them. Since I'm a right side, I'm blocking against the outsides. I don't see a whole lot of left-handed outside, so everything always looks the same as it's always been to me. But yeah, I mean, I think there's an advantage to being left-handed on the right side. Obviously, I think you can work with a lot more angles. I can cut it a lot sharper than someone with their right potentially could. Granted, there are people out there with their right that can hit the same exact angles, but it's my advantage because it's a different look defensively for the other team, and they have to adjust to it more so than I have to adjust to them.
Okay.
So. Yeah, I think it's all relative, I think, but it's hard for me to answer only because I've seen it one way my entire life.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's a good point. I think it obviously doesn't change anything for you, but I think it does change things for your opponents, and I think in particular from the service line, it changes things a lot.
Sure.
And you've got some serving variety. We've seen you jump spin, we've seen you jump float, but jump spinners, the left-handed thing, it tends to hook completely the opposite direction. Left to right for you, or probably be right to left for a right-hander. Passers are going to take the opposite seam. Talk to me a little bit about your serving mindset. What makes you choose jump or float? And then once you choose, what do you look at? What do you go after?
Well, that's something that's been constantly evolving for me. As of late, I'm trying to just take a more aggressive approach to my serving and basically go with my top spin in all confidence from here on out, just because I want my serve to be an extension of my attack. So I don't want to just put something easy into play. I mean, there's going to be a time and a place to do that, but I want my initial serve to go up and just be aggressive and have it be a point-scoring opportunity to get the other team out of system, as opposed to just putting something safe in play to just keep the game moving. So if I can become aggressive and efficient at the service line with a lot of pace on my topspin, then I think that's going to keep people a little more on their heels if I do decide to switch to a jump float and drop something short, or just change the entire look of the ball by going flat with it. So it depends on the scenario. I mean, I think everyone's always going to look at who they have on the other side of the net, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and play to that. If we know it's a team that struggled taking it with their hands, then we're probably going to pop in with a float, go and challenge them high at their shoulders.
Yep.
If we know they're strong with that and we want to push them deep, we'll just let it rip. Just launch and try to push deep seams with a lot of pace and just force movement within those passers.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it never hurts to have options, obviously.
Yeah.
I like just for the opposite position in particular, I like thinking of it as your serving being extensions of your attacking, like you said. Something that I've noticed a lot recently is when a hitter, it's usually either a left side or a right side that gets really on a roll at the service line, like hitting hard jump spin servers. Like if you get a free ball back over, your setter a lot of times will set you in the back row just because they can kind of feel that you're hot from the service line and kind of keep you going like that. And I think that the confidence that comes from the service line transfers into the rest of the areas of your game differently than everything else because it's the only thing that you can control completely. Do you agree with that kind of? Because like you control it from start to finish, the toss and everything from the toss, the approach to the contact, everything through it. And it's the only thing in volleyball where that's the case. Everything else is dependent on the contact before it.
Right. It's very the way I use that to, like, I'll use an analogy similar to that to my boys. It's like in basketball, the one thing you can control is your free throw.
Free throws.
When you're at the line, you have your routine. You have all the time to do what you need to do. There's no one else. There's no other like variables in that. It's just you, the ball, and your shot.
That's right.
So at the service line, it's the same thing. You have your time. You have your routine. There's no one else. You're not relying on someone to pass the ball. You're not relying on someone to set you up with it. It's just you and the ball, and you have everything in control from there. So it's one of those moments where you can kind of resettle and just kind of settle yourself internally and externally and then just kind of reset and go.
Yeah. And like you just kind of mentioned, you have been coaching quite a bit the past couple of years. So from a coach's perspective, I want to talk about serving a little bit more because some people who haven't played the game at a high level, when they watch men's volleyball at the top levels, are like, why are they missing so many serves? I've heard that question a lot, especially when I've been commentating matches. People are like, why are they missing serves all the time? Well, what people don't understand is that when you lollipop in easy serves, the other offenses are so good that you have absolutely no chance of defending them. So kind of put on your coach's hat here for a second and think a little bit statistically about things like ace to error ratio and like sometimes you'll have servers that you can tell them to back off a little bit. Sometimes you have guys that you're going to give the green light to every time. Talk a little bit about serving philosophy at the highest levels, like kind of as a team.
Well, I would imagine, at least with the boys that I coach, it's, you kind of know, there's some guys that are going to have a green light and others that we're going to be a little more restrictive with. But, at the highest level, guys work on this, on their consistency.
Yeah.
So, again, anything that you can do to minimize the chances of the other team getting an easy play, if we can start that off with our serve, then that's what we're going to go and do. That's why the whole point of it being an extension of our attack is we want to be as aggressive as possible. Also, just creating movement. So if we have someone that's going to be just a strict float server but have phenomenal hand contact and placement, then we're going to use that to our advantage and force that movement and put the other team in uncomfortable positions that make them more predictable for our blockers to be able to go and close and just read the play.
Yep.
So I think the biggest thing out of it is creating movement. Whether it be with hard seams or moving that front and back kind of motion for the passers, anything to make the other team uncomfortable, make it easier for us defensively is what we're shooting for from the service line.
I've heard that sometimes that serving is the first line of defense, and that is a way of thinking about it that I've seen coached before, and I think makes a little bit of sense because if you can put a team 15 feet off the net, your defensive jobs, blocking followed by digging, becomes substantially easier, like you just said. So everybody kind of knows who's played the game at this high of a level that winning a volleyball match a lot of the time comes down to serving and passing. And fortunately for you, passing isn't your job, at least most of the time.
Right.
But serving definitely is. So everybody gets their chance to, whether it's do their job, put the ball in bounds, target the right person, or do some damage from the service line, and that is oftentimes the things that determines matches.
Absolutely it does. Obviously the more you can get them out of system, it's just the probability of them going right into what you want them to do is going to increase because you're just going to be able to read, okay, well, this guy's no longer an option. We just took the middle out of the play. Granted, there's going to be setters out there that can hit their middles from any location on the court.
Like every setter in our league.
Every setter in this league can do that. But still, the less of a chance you give them to do that and the more predictable they can become, it just, advantage goes to our side to be able to transition inside back out.
Yep. Sometimes it's just that simple. If your team is dominant from the service line in a match, you are almost definitely going to win that match. It's just kind of the way it is. So, you guys throughout the preseason, we talked a little about you scrimmaging U of A and ASU. You've gotten to play a lot of volleyball so far, maybe more so than any other team in the league. Part of that is because a higher percentage of your guys are not playing, or we're not playing professionally overseas, which is nice. But you guys have gotten to play, like, you got to play Long Beach State, you got to play Grand Canyon, you got to play the club teams, like we said. What different things was your team able to learn and develop from playing teams at kind of different spots on the ladder in the volleyball world in the preseason?
Well, I mean, it just gives us a different look every single time of just the competition that's out there. So, I mean, we were able to start out our preseason traveling out to Long Beach and playing them twice.
In the pyramid.
Yeah, which is a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Real depth perception's a real crazy thing in there. But
I believe it.
Yeah, it's fun. But obviously, they're back-to-back national champions. So one, that's just it's an honor and a great opportunity for us to be able to go to their gym. Their coaches allowing us to go in there and play against their guys so early on. And so you're looking at one of the top-tier programs in the country right there. So that's already going to challenge us right out the gate. And in that first scrimmage, we're piecing together some new guys on our team, so we're playing with different lineups, and it gives us a chance to see who works well together, who's stronger off of whom, and just starting to build that team dynamic and that team chemistry very early. It gives us so many different lineup looks and see who's a little bit more cohesive. Plus, I mean, you can't ask for a much better competition than the number one team in the country right out the gate.
True.
And then so playing against teams like GCU, this season they were having a phenomenal season.
They were.
So, their coach Matt Worley is doing a very good job with that program, getting the right guys in the gym, and I mean, they're going to continue to build. But again, it gives us a chance to play versus a high-caliber Division I NCAA team. We play against Park University, which is a new program out in Gilbert. Their head coach, Clay Webb, doing a very good job starting to build a program out there, and they're going to be a team that I think in the next few years they're going to challenge well in the NAIA.
Right.
So, again, we're seeing all these different tiers of teams all the way down to the club teams, but for us, it's never overlooking one opponent because of where they're at. We're going to step out on the court and put together our best possible product because we need to get ready. So it's not overlooking anyone. We got teams that are going to take some points off us for sure. There's teams that we're going to be more dominant against, but at the end, it's helping us really find our identity and our cohesiveness, which has just been really, I'll say we're fortunate. We're fortunate, one, that the sport is growing so much in Arizona that we have the options to be able to take a 6-hour car ride to California to get matches in.
Yeah.
We don't have to fly anywhere. We have other programs that are reaching out to us to be able to come play them. So, we take full advantage of what we have growing here in the state.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's well described, and I think it's mutually beneficial for both the sides too. Like all the college programs are, at the time you played them, were in their preseasons, so they're kind of doing the same things that you are. They're trying to figure out their pieces, and getting quality touches against a team of your caliber is going to be good for them as well. And especially like a Park or a U of A or an ASU, you might be the best team that they play against all year. So that is very good for those guys to see what maybe a level of team that they can aspire to be. So it's tremendously good for our league, for your team, and for all those teams just to get on the court together and play a bunch of volleyball in the preseason.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we get you out of here, Brian, we're all kind of stuck inside right now. We're all missing the sport in a really big way. But sooner or later, we are going to get back out there. So talk about just what you and your team are looking forward to this season before we let you go.
Well, I think right out the gate, I think the level of competition that we're going to see across the VLA once we're allowed to step on the court is going to be something special, because right now all these guys are having so much time to rest their bodies, heal up, and so everyone's going to step on the court at 100%. So it's not like guys are going to be coming from overseas being fatigued. These guys are already back and ready to go. So I think on those first matches, I think it's going to be a pretty high intensity level. I mean, we're all excited to get out there, so the adrenaline's going to really be pumping, and everyone's going to want to put on a good show for the crowds that we have at all these events. But I think everyone's just doing their best to stay ready, to get in touches however they can. I know for me, it's been peppering with my fiance. I'm fortunate enough that she's a former D1 libero, so she's all about ball control, and she's helping me get better. So
nice, lucky you, man.
That's a lot of fun. But I think we're all just itching, ready to go. I think this season, the growth of this league is going to be something to really be seen. I think this is going to be a great stepping stone for what's to come in the future. and it also shows to younger guys, whether it's again college club or even just the juniors that are out there, that there is going to be an opportunity to play volleyball domestically in a professional league, and you're not going to have to go overseas. I think that opportunity is always going to be great to go see the world and play. But I mean, kids in any sport want to play on their home soil in front of their friends and family and their fans. And I think that's what this league is going to be able to start creating. So I'm just looking forward to getting out there and battling with the boys. I mean, I miss it. You know, I don't know how many more years I have. I know there's obviously guys far older than me
It's true.
that are playing, so they set the longevity of it out. But you know, I just want to take advantage of the time I have being with the guys I'm around and just really trying to make a name for Phoenix Ascension this season.
Awesome. Couldn't have said it better myself, man. Anybody who wants to watch volleyball right now while there's nothing else going on, check out more on our YouTube channel. All of the Ascension scrimmages that we've talked about in this interview are there. You can watch them for free. If you want to watch volleyball, you want to see this guy rip balls cross body down the line on the right side, that's your place to do it. So, yeah, check out the YouTube channel. Check out all the Ascension content we have up there. Stay tuned for a lot more episodes of this show. Brian, thanks for calling in. Everyone else, thanks a lot for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.